In March, we reported bird flu for the first time, made the jump to U.S. dairy cows. Now, health officials say it has spread to cats. Officials say at least 14 cats have died of bird flu in the U.S., the spread raising concerns about the possibility of human-to-human transmission from a future variant. So far, though, only a few human cases have been found.
That inspired this week's Ask the Doc question from viewer Colleen, who writes, quote, "I would love to hear Dr. Daigneault's opinions on the current bird flu scare. I'm reading a lot of conflicting information ranging from brace yourself, it's the next pandemic and has a 50% death rate in humans, all the way to it not being a threat and just a variation of the flu and that there really is no reason to be concerned." She goes on to ask about symptoms, transmission, pets, and travel.
So with more, we are joined by our Fox 11 medical contributor, board-certified emergency room doctor, Michael Daigneault. Good to have you.
Thank you.
Let's start with the basics, and that is, what is bird flu, and how did it spread to cattle in the first place?
So we've been tracking bird flu for a number of decades, since the 90s when it emerged in China, and there's been outbreaks here and there over the last few years. And so what we think happened late 2023, early 2024 was in migrating mallard ducks coming from the south back up north. There was probably a crossover event. One of those infected ducks landed on the farm, perhaps died in some feed that the cattle got into, and the virus made the jump. And just remember, a flu virus is very easy to mutate compared to COVID. It's able to do so a lot faster. And so I think that's what happened. And now we have over 53 herds across 9 states officially, and that's definitely an undercount because a lot of farmers are just not incentivized to report this to the USDA right now. And there were some independent researchers that tracked the milk in the Midwest and found that it was prevalent in over 50% of milk samples. But again, this is not infectious virus because it's already gone through pasteurization. But it just goes to show you how much more widespread it is than we think.
So you could drink the milk even though it has bird flu in it?
Right. So again, going back to what we remember from COVID, right, when we did the PCR test, right, that was just to test it would find the evidence of the virus in non-infectious fragments. It doesn't necessarily mean it's infectious, contagious fragments. So as long as you drink pasteurized milk, you should be okay.
So have humans ever gotten bird flu?
Yeah, so over the years, there's been about 900 cases, and the concerning thing is, as our viewer, the one that wrote in said, that 50% have died, and so it can be very virulent, like much more than COVID or any other pathogen we've seen. And so far with this particular strain, there's only been one reported case. This was a dairy farm worker in Texas who got a very bad case of conjunctivitis from working with infected cows.
Yeah, so what does that look like? I mean, so if you've got bird flu, how is that different from the regular flu, from COVID, from other things people have experienced?
I mean, we don't really know right now because we just have that one case that was really bad conjunctivitis. And so what we don't want is so the virus right now, we know it's present in the milk, and it's particularly high concentrations in the udders of dairy farm cows. And we think that it's a mechanical process of transformation across the equipment, from the collection of the milk and then the processing. And it's going from udder to udder and across the cows that are moving across the states. And I don't think people really understand how much herd cattle cross the interstate lines, including internationally. So it's already very much widespread. So when we talk about flu, we think that it's like a contagious respiratory virus, but right now it's not killing these cows. What we don't want is, because there's so much human contact with cows, we don't want this virus to develop an affinity for humans, and then it further mutates to cause human-to-human transmission. We just don't want to get to that point.
Well, and then now it's in the cats, and a lot of these cats, as far as I was reading, they're barn cats, so they're cats that live on these dairy farms, and therefore they're pets, so that's concerning. What's the response like in terms of from the government? I know the CDC issued a warning today, basically for state health departments to be really mindful and track influenza.
Right, so there's multiple levels of what's going on. The USDA is providing up to $28,000 per farm to increase their biosecurity, to sort of track this, enact more safety measures, but it's really not a lot of money. A lot of these farms have, from 100 to over 10,000 dairy cows, and the CDC is offering $75 only per farm worker to help in the testing and collection of samples. And again, that's not too much either. And so, that's why we're talking about wastewater again. The CDC is telling local public health officials to continue to do the flu monitoring, because as you know, we're off season for flu right now. And bird flu is still flu A. So if we're testing in the ER and we're sending these samples to local public health and they're doing the sub-testing to see what kind of strain it is, that could help pick up if it's bird flu.
Well, and we should also note that the farm worker who did get bird flu and had pink eye,
conjunctivitis, yep,
he recovered.
he survived, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So to answer Colleen, the original question for Ask the Doc, should we be concerned about bird flu right now, or is it much ado about nothing? What's the bottom line answer for her?
I think we should be concerned. I think we should be really keeping a close eye on this, because you remember back in early 2020 with COVID, you know, asking the farmers to control the herds moving across states. The horse was, in this case, in this sense, the cow's already out of the barn, right? It's almost when we started to do travel bans for COVID. It's too late. And I think, you know, we're doing the right thing in tracking the wastewater, because I think the farmers right now are just not incentivized to help us out, because you have to remember, a dairy cow, they get 10 to 20 years out of, and it's a huge investment for them. And so
well, this is their lifeline.
Right, and so if you start saying you have to take this cow out of the rotation for 30 days, which is what it is now, that's a huge loss of money. So the government really needs to step up their incentivization for the farmers to help us out, or we're just going to have to rely on wastewater testing as it is.